back to the Seaboard Central, everyone, and another episode in the Realistic Ops series. In today's video, I'm going to show you a computerized version of the track inventory switch list. But before we get to that episode, for all of you that tuned into the last episode on the switch list episode, I want to give my appreciation and thanks. And just for you, I'd like to give you a little short mid-month progress layout update at the beginning of this video. So without further ado, let's get started. So here's a little in progress layout update where I'm at the middle of the month. I've completed the bench work that's going to support the helix, and this is what I call AC junction modules. You can see the construction technique that I'm using. And actually, the bench work here is going to support the helix. And the helix I am building is a kit that is made by TracksideScenery.com. Seems pretty simple and straightforward. And I'm really looking forward to getting it completed because it's really going to improve operations on the layout. Keep watching for the next update and see how far I get along with this. So here's a prototype track inventory list. And this one's for Norfolk Southern, so if you work for another railroad, I'd be interested to see what yours look like. Now what these are, these just show the current inventory in each track in the yard, and conductors will print these off to look for the cars that they're going to need for their day or how they're going to go about their work. So here you see this is Dorville Yard, located in Dorville, Georgia on Norfolk Southern. This is track DY01 in the yard. And here it shows there that this time was 14 cars in the track with 13 loads and 1 empty. And here you see how they're lined up. And this would be the north car in the track, and this is the south car in the track. Here's the column for the initials of the car and the column for the number of the car. This tells us loaded or empty. Next one is the weight of the car. And this is in pounds, 255,700 pounds. Here's the class code that I talked about in the earlier videos. This shows an industry class code for these cars. These are all industry cars. So W05 would be a Williams Brothers Concrete in Dorville or Norcross, Georgia, and U15 is a Lehigh Cement car. There's a handling column in case they're dangerous or hazmat. That'll be located in this column. A local column will show if there's a spot-specific location for the car to go to. You'll see that populate in this local column. Shows a next train, what they're due out on. This is also an attention column. There's the commodity. So you see CMT for cement. Here's a maintenance away car down here loaded with cross ties. And here is a slag car. It's actually a covered hopper loaded with an aggregate slag used in the concrete making process. Here's that AAR code that I was talking about, Elmler AAR code. And remember, C is for covered hopper, and this is basically the size of the car. T right here is for a tank car. And this shows the date that the car arrived and what train they arrived on. So this is helpful when you want to get the oldest cars in the track, especially if you have a customer that with a limited amount of track space and they've got more cars in the yard that they can handle. They'll generally, if it's an open gate customer and they don't order their cars in, they'll want the oldest cars. And so this is how you determine that. It shows the arrival date and the train they arrived on. Here's a list of the track DY06 in the yard. And it shows some more information. For example, here's the a UTLX tank car going to V26, and there's that local column. They want that car on track number 1. And also you can see here's a dangerous car, and it's labeled dangerous. It's a probably sodium hydroxide car. You get some dangerous information. Here's a carload of ethanol, also marked dangerous. And you just see other things that starch, plastic, and there's your AAR car type code. Here's a list of DY8. And I just wanted to show you this because this actually has a car It's not supposed to be in this yard. It's actually class coded for Toccoa. So that car will have to be dug out and taken to another yard so it can be forwarded on the next train headed to Toccoa. So that shows if it's got a destination, the next block, it'll show up something like that. Now, in the previous video, I showed how I'd make one of these handwritten switch lists. They're easy to use. Probably use this most of the time. But what if I wanted to do something more formal, something that would look more like what the prototype has? So let's take my Gadsden yard, for example, and the current inventory that is in the yard. So first I'd make a list of those cars, and I'm going to go back and I'll make a document showing how they stand. It includes a little more information than that handwritten switch list. So here's my version of a computerized track list, track inventory list. And I made this a little bit more simple than the prototype. It doesn't have near as much information that the prototype has on it, but it's easier to read and easier to understand. Here I got the railroad name, and this is the type of form it is, a track inventory switch list. It shows the yard station milepost and the yard name. Here's a column for the track. Now I included this because I wanted to be able to list more than one track on one sheet of paper, just to cut down on paper and make it easier for crews to see, especially when you have only 8 cars in a track like this one does. So this is track 9, and here's the north car in the track, and here is the south car in the track. Here is a loaded and empty column, shows which cars are loaded, which ones are empty. And instead of a weight in pounds, I've got it the weight in tonnage. So this is how many tons they are. Here is that AAR car type code for the cars and a column for the commodity. I have a column for in case it is a dangerous. And here's the class code column, a local column in case that there's a spot number involved. And this is something the conductor can use to fill out which track they need to be switched to, or the yard master to instruct the yard crew which track to switch the cars to. So when you see track number 10, for example, I've got 2 loads of ethanol, and here's the dangerous code. And in this case, you see a class code where these cars, this group of cars right here, needs to be switched for the Norfolk Southern interchange. You see there's cement, sand, and fuel oil, and it's a hazmat load. So let's mark this list up and show how I'd actually switch it. Now, for those of you that this class code column, let me go over the class codes. This is the industry class code. So for example, A20 is for the local track supervisor. So you see it's a load of rail for the local track supervisor. A18 is this SD's rail car service where they do rail car repair. And all these are brand new cars, fresh out of the box, that need to be upgraded with new wheels, couplers, and weathered. So I'll be routing them through the shop. And here is another track. This shows some cars that need to be switched over to a track for Norfolk Southern to pick up. And then you have A19. This is for the shop foreman. So you have 2 loads of sand for the engine terminal and 2 loads of fuel oil for the engine terminal. So in the case of a track that doesn't need to be switched, I'm just going to mark it as leave, LV. So we won't even mess with those cars. Now for this Norfolk Southern block, I need to move these over to GY05. So we'll put this block of cars into GY05. We're going to put this sand hoppers in A19, along with the ethanol cars. So those need to be switched to the shop. So in track 11, I've marked everything leave except for this south car, this L&N car that needs to be go to the shop. It's going to get re-stenciled. I'm going to go ahead and upgrade and weather it. So I've ordered that one in for work at SD's Rail Car Service. So let's work on this and switch them out. To make all these moves, we'll use the 153 coming off of ready track number 2. We got permission now. We can go ahead and start our work. First thing we're going to do is make our way over to the yard tracks. So looking at our list again, the first thing I want to do is pick up this L&N car off the south end of GY11. And you can see it back there, that family line system car. That's the one we want. And then since I don't have a lot of headroom to pull everything out of track 10, I'm just going to come out with the 4 cars out of 10 going to A19. And we'll just set those over to track 12 temporarily. So we're lined all the way to track 11. We'll head on back to a coupling. All right, cut's made. We're going to pull ahead, go to track 10. I think while that car's in the shop, I'll add some weight to it. That jerking motion you see when I was shoving back there is a car that's too light. So what I'm doing now is I'm just pulling the track down. And then we'll make a cut. Anywhere is good. Now with the track stretched out like that, conductor's going to need some pin. So I say, give me some pin. And I just shove the slack in so he can pull that cut lever. That's made. Pull ahead. These are all our spot cars. You can see we're going to end up on the new section of track down here. I've got some track temporarily set up to make this move. That'll do. I will shove these in the clear in track 11. We're going to go back to track number 10 and grab the rest of that stuff that needs to be switched over to a track for the NS to pick up. Making this move will end up opening up track number 10. Thus creating another open track. Now we're aligned to track number 5, so we'll shove these in the clear. Performing yard switching is definitely my favorite part of operations. I find it relaxing. I really enjoy it. Now that we made that move, we're going to come out. We're going to run down and run through the engine thoroughfare to pull those cars out of track number 12 so we can make a runaround move. Having this little extension allows for that. So my route is all lined up. Move the engine back through the engine thoroughfare. All right, we'll pull these cars in the clear and then we'll run around them so we can spot them up. This is the great thing about the design of this yard. It allows for this move. So now we're going to pull the cars back and we're going to spot that car for SD's rail service first. It's that track that's all the way along the backdrop in the back. We'll shove it all the way to the shed. Now it's time to spot the fuel, oil, and sand. We can hold all 4 of the cars on the track even though they'll only unload 2 at a time. 2 of these cars will just be off-spot cars. My goal is to get this sand hopper right over the pit. There we go. So we got everything wrapped up. Pretty productive. Hope you've enjoyed watching this switching operation in Gadsden Yard on the Seaboard Central. So just to wrap things up, I created this document in Word. It's a Word document. Although I'm sure some of you computer tech guys could create it in Access or Excel, maybe even go as far as making a database for your entire fleet of cars. But that's beyond the scope of what I'm trying to do here. This is mainly just for formal operating sessions and basically for the yard tracks here at Gadsden. Just something to help me play around and add another layer of realism to my operations. So next week we'll be going over the industry work order, so be sure to tune back in for that. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like. And as always, I want to thank you for watching, and happy model railroading, everyone.